Thank you. Here we are on Mother's Day of 2021, and we're turning the floor over to Mark Schulman, who will present OneNote.
Hi, everybody. So Huey had said that I was going to do a rebuttal. I'm not quite going to do a rebuttal. I've used Evernote, actually. I used it for quite a while, and I liked it a lot. So it really is just a matter of personal preference. I've been using OneNote probably for, I don't know, about 8 years now, I guess. And I really like it a lot, but obviously everybody's got preferences. So let's just see if I can do this. There we go. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about what OneNote can do. I'm going to show you some of the cooler features about it. And then if you've got any questions, I'll tell you how to get it. I'll tell you what it costs. It's generally free, but you can still wind up paying some money under some circumstances. So some things about OneNote. Number one, it started out as a note-taking app. So the idea was that you could be sitting in at a meeting, and Evernote started the same way, of course. And it was just a place for you to dump notes that you were taking, whether it was a class, a meeting, or just browsing online and you wanted to write down some things from your experience online. So it can organize just about any part of your life. And for me, it really has become the central organizational hub for my life. It's where I keep all the information about what's going on in my life. It's where I store data. Obviously, I still keep a lot of files, but if I've just got text or pictures or something like that, that's not appropriate necessarily as individual files, then it winds up going in OneNote. And it was kind of interesting because when Stan asked me to do this presentation, I thought, well, let me just look at some of the ways I use it to organize my life. And I realized that really how important it was and what a central part it's become of my life. So the app itself is completely free. And generally, the vast majority of people who use OneNote wind up not having to pay anything. And I'll describe that for you as we go through the presentation. It's available for Windows, Mac, Android, iOS, and there is a web version available. Now you'll notice the only thing that's missing here is Linux. I don't know of any Linux version available. I don't know if it runs under Wine, and if you don't know what Wine is, that's fine. But no matter what operating system you're on, even if you're on something like a Chromebook or Linux, you can always just pull up the web version of it and run it in a browser. And I'm going to show that to you, and it works just peachy in the web browser. So the notebooks that we create, and I'll show you how that's organized in just a second, can be stored in one of two places. You can either store it on your hard drive as a directory, and I'll show you that, or you can store it in Microsoft OneDrive. And that's where most of my notebooks are stored. So the organization of notebooks, of OneNote, what you do is you create notebooks. And a notebook can be it can be a project, can be an area of your life, can be, I use it for keep information on different companies that I do work for. So a notebook is the overarching classification in OneNote. And then what we do is we take those notebooks and we divide them up into sections. And then within each section, we store pages. And you can think of a page as a document. So, and I'll show you what that looks like as I go through the demo. So here's what the interface for OneNote looks like. Now there's several different versions of OneNote out. They all have the same general idea, but the layout can be a little bit different depending on the version you're using. So here, if you look over on the left-hand side, you see a list of all my notebooks. And there's notebooks for different companies I deal with. There's a notebook there where I keep medical information. I keep a notebook on my parents and information I need about them, different projects. There's a recipe notebook over there. So all kinds of different things. Then you have a series of tabs across the top, and those are your sections. So I have a notebook called Books, where I keep track of books that I've either read or am interested in reading. And I divided that up into, 6 sections. And then we're currently looking at, I don't know if you can tell, but the Read Next tab is a little bit bigger than the others. That's the section we're looking at. And you notice that kind of that dark red color also extends all the way over to the right side of the screen. So that's also your clue that that's the section we're in. And then listed down the right-hand side is a list of all the pages in this section. And there's actually a lot more than you can see because there's scroll bars there. So I've got hundreds of pages in this section. They're all books that I hope someday to read, even though I know I'll never live long enough to read all the books that I've got listed in there. So that's what the general OneNote interface looks like. So let me show it to you and show you a bunch of features. So I'm going to get out of this. And let's actually pop over to OneNote. So this is what it looks like. Let me minimize that a little bit. It might be a little hard to see. Okay, how's that look? So here are my notebooks listed over here. And you can see this is just what you saw a minute ago. Here are my sections across the top, and I've got the pages down here. Now, a couple interesting things about the interface. First of all, you might ask, well, what if I have so many sections that there's not enough room across the top to show all the sections? Well, it turns out if I click this little down arrow next to the book, next to the notebook, I also get a list of sections, and it's exactly the same as the tabs. So what this enables you to do is, if you want to create a notebook that's got 30 different sections in it, then you may run out of space for the tabs, but you'll always have space here to list them vertically. If I want a little more space to type, one of the things I can do is I can get rid of the notebook list and I can get rid of the page list. And I wind up with just a blank sheet of paper, essentially, that I can type on. So if I'm in a class and I'm taking notes in the class, this is a good way to just get rid of all the clutter and get as much space as I can possibly get to type on. So let me put that back the way it was. So I was trying to think, what's a good example of something that I can show you that might illustrate how I would use OneNote to plan something or to organize something. And so I thought, well, suppose I wanted to take a trip. So suppose my wife and I wanted to take a trip to Australia and wanted to plan that whole trip. So I created a notebook. Actually, before I do that, let me just show you real quickly how to create a notebook. That'll just take a second. So to create a new notebook, all I have to do is go to File and New. And I tell it where I want to store the notebook. I'm going to store it on this PC. And I just type the name of the notebook. And I'll just make something up, my notebook. And I click Create Notebook. And there's my new notebook. And it starts out with just one section called New Section 1 and one page called Untitled Page. And that's it. And now I can rename the section if I want to, which I no doubt would. Right click on the tab and go to Rename. And I can call this Projects. And then if I want to create another section, I can click the plus tab here. And these are things to do, and so on. And this is what a blank page looks like. And you can get a lot fancier than this. I'll show you lots of examples. But I can put my title here and hit tab. And then I just get an open area to type in. And I can just type all I want right down there. And that's pretty much all it is to create a notebook and start using it. So let me go over to this notebook that I created earlier that I've actually got some data in where I'm going to plan my trip to Australia. So if I click on it, you can see I've already created a bunch of sections. So I've got itinerary, I've got hotels, I've got things I want to do while I'm there. I've got an inbox, and I'll explain what that's for in just a second. I've got some references. I've got a journal, and the journal is where I might keep track of when I actually go on the trip. It's a place for me to sit and type every day about what I did that day. And then I've got some travel documents, and I've got a section labeled About, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. So the first thing I might have is you can see I've already created some pages here. So I've got a page that I want to put my route on for my trip. So this is the route that we're hoping to take on our trip. Now, it happens that my wife already designed out what our trip is going to look like, and she made a little graphic in Google Maps of our trip, and I want to put it in OneNote. So here's a file on my hard drive just called route.png, and I want to put it in OneNote. Well, I just drop and drag it into OneNote, and there it is. There's a nice little image of where we're going to go, and I can make it as big as I want. And so now I've got a map of what our route of travel is going to be. She also put our travel itinerary in our calendar, and I took a screenshot of it, and I put that in OneNote as well. So there's our travel calendar of where we're going to be. Now, obviously, it's going to take a lot to do to get ready for this. So I created a page called To-Do List, and these are things I want to do right before we leave. Maybe I'll make that say last minute, before trip. And then I always like to have a list of things to do when I get back from a trip, a place to put reminders of things I need to do when I get back. One of the cool things about OneNote is that I can create a to-do list right here. So you notice I've got an icon up here that says to-do tag. And if I click that, it creates a little checkbox, and I like to indent that a little bit. I think it looks better. And so some things I want to do before my trip. Oh, I don't want that in bold. I want to pack sunglasses, and I want to charge my laptop, and I want to charge my cell phone. Now, these aren't just icons. These are actually clickable boxes. So as I do these, I can check them off, and I can rearrange them. So if I decide, you know what, I need to plug my laptop in now, but I'm not going to pack my sunglasses till tomorrow, I can take pack sunglass and just slide it down on the list. So you can rearrange the list really easily. And then I can do the same thing down here. So when I get back, I'm going to click to-do tag and indent it, and I can say tell. Wait, I'm not getting these the size that I want them. There we go. Tell post office that you're back, and so on. And I actually do this every time I take a trip. I always have a page that has in it a to-do list for when I get back. So when I think of things like, oh, when I get back, I need to call so-and-so, I've got a place to do that. Over here, I've got my car rental information, and I just copied and pasted stuff from my email when I got a confirmation email from the company. And of course, the company sent me a PDF that's got my confirmation in it. And I'll show you what the PDF looks like. So it's a typical Travelocity confirmation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that, and I'm just going to drop that right into OneNote as well. And I'm going to say I want to attach the file. And right there is a file attachment. So right in OneNote, I've got that file. And anytime I need to, I can just double click on that icon, and it'll pull it right up for me. So if I wanted to, I could actually delete the file now because I've got it in OneNote. You can create tables in OneNote. So if I go to my flights tab, you can see there I've got a little list of all our flights and the schedule, and I actually attached all the confirmations here. So again, I've got all the files attached here. They're all right there, and if I double click them, there's the emails from the airlines with the confirmations in them. I also imported the email that I got. This is actually a trip that we took a few years ago, and there's the confirmation for the ferry that we had to take. And here's a great thing that I love. So obviously, for a trip, I want to be able to keep track of my expenses. So I created a page called Expenses, and I can type this is what we're expecting to spend. And then I can go to the Insert tab, and I can stick a spreadsheet right here. So right in OneNote, I've got this spreadsheet. Oops. So I can come in here and, come on, I want to edit. Oh, I think it did. Okay, so item. Yeah, that's not working. Haven't done this on this machine. This is really interesting. There we go. Okay, so there, an item, and then, no, that's not working either. Wow. Okay, I don't think I've got Office set up right to do this. You do have to have Excel for this, by the way. So actually, if you double click it, it will open Excel. You don't always have to do that. So I can go item and cost and currency conversion and Australian dollars. And I can put in bus pass, and it's $20, but there's a 1.8 conversion factor. So then that would be this times this. There we go. Okay, so I could fill that out, and then I should just be able to save it and get out, and there it is right in OneNote. And you can see it's right back there. There we go. So that's a really cool thing to be able to do. I haven't done that on this machine. I don't have Office set up exactly right for it, but that's a very cool thing to be able to do. If I look at some of the other tabs, I'm keeping track of some places, some hotels that we're planning to stay at. You can see that I can import pictures. I can copy and paste from websites. So I can put just about any kind of information in there you can imagine. I've got lists of things I want to do. You notice that if you paste a web link, it actually becomes clickable. So here I just pasted a link to this place, and if I click on it, it will just open a browser and take me there. And it's really slow for some reason. There we go. So this is a great way to keep track of different things. Now, of different places we want to go. You'll notice, by the way, one thing that's interesting to notice the page here has got these little stars across the top or across the side. A page doesn't have to be just plain white. OneNote comes with all kinds of templates that you can use to make the pages look like different things. So they've got dozens and dozens of little decorative pages that have different kinds of borders and different colors. And you can change the appearance of the pages a lot. You can do things like I can put lines on it. I don't know if you can see that really easily, but it put lines on it. I can change the color of the page. So if I want to make that page a different color, I can do that. So you can change the appearances of the page a lot. One of the things I really like, I think Huey showed you this in Evernote. Suppose I'm out there doing some research, and let me minimize my browser here a little bit. So we want to take a tour of the wine country there. So I want to look for, I always get the spelling wrong, Barossa Valley wine tours. So let's see what we got here. Oh, 10 best Barossa Valley wine tours. That sounds pretty interesting. Let's look at what that's got. Okay, and it's got a bunch of tours listed with prices, and this looks really useful. So what I could do is I could just copy and paste the link into OneNote, and that would work just fine. But the other thing I can do is I can go to the web clipper here, and click on that. And it says, okay, here's what the page is going to look like in OneNote. It's a big page, so it's going to take it a sec. And then it wants to know where you'd like to put it. So I'm going to say, well, I'd like to put it in my Australia notebook in the Things to Do section and clip. And it does it. So let me close the browser. Now there's an interesting thing here. There it is. Okay, it takes a second to show up because what it actually does is it puts it up on the cloud and then it synchronizes it down to OneNote. So now if I go here, there's all the information off that page. The whole page is right there. And what's really nice about this is all on my laptop now. So it's synchronized it from the cloud down onto my laptop, so I can be sitting on the airplane with no Wi-Fi and I can still see all of this information. So a couple other quick things. I've got some references, so this is useful. So like here's a map of Kangaroo Island, which is one of the places that we want to go. So this allows me to show you one other feature that's pretty neat. I can actually mark up these pages. So let me turn on the little yellow highlighter and I can highlight this to indicate, maybe to remind me that that's really someplace I want to go. Or I can even draw on the page. And sometimes it's hard to see where the brush is, but I can draw some stuff around the places that I really want to remember. This is really handy on tablets. If you have a pen, you can actually write on pages. I can try to write on it here too, but I'm not very good writing with the mouse. But you can do it. So OneNote will store not only pictures and files and text, but it'll actually store what they call ink. I always like to have a section in a notebook called Inbox, and this is just where I stick stuff before I've decided where else to put it. So sometimes I'll put quick to-do lists in there, sometimes just information that I want to look at later. So here's a book on Amazon that I might want to buy. So I cut the link to it and put a picture of the book in here. And so now at some point, if I want to, I can look into maybe buying that book. And then here's a journal. So when I actually take the trip, here's a place where I can keep track of everything that I did and maybe sit down every night and just write up a little bit about how the trip's going. And then travel docs. So suppose I'm taking this trip and I want a copy of my passport and my insurance and all of that stuff, but that's kind of sensitive information. I don't know that I'd want people to be able to get to that. I sure wouldn't want someone to just be able to click on that and see it. So if I click on this section, look what it says. This section is password protected. So OneNote enables you to take a section and encrypt it. And without entering the password, I can't see it. So if I click on the anywhere here, it asks for a password. And once I do that, there's my passport, my car insurance, and then whatever other sensitive information I might not want people to get if they found my laptop. So that's really nice. I use that all over the place. And then the last thing I'll show you is on most of my notebooks, I stick a section called About. And Huey was talking about earlier this afternoon, finding passwords in his password vault that for websites he never even remembered going to. Well, I will all the time stumble across notebooks that I don't remember creating, and I don't even remember why I created them. So I'll usually create a section called About, and I just put a quick sentence in there. What's this? What am I using this notebook for? And what's the purpose of this notebook? Just in case I come across it 10 years from now and I can't remember what I intended to use this for. So that's a quick demo of some of the things you can do in OneNote. Anybody have any questions on anything so far? Nope. Okay. So a couple more little tidbits of information, and then we'll talk more, we'll open it up for questions. So OneNote does work in other operating systems besides just Windows. I actually use it on my Android phone. So here's some screenshots of what it looks like in Android. Here's a screenshot where it lists all my notebooks. And then I opened up the Australia notebook, and you can see it's got the tables in it, it's got pictures, it's got text, it's even got the file attachments. So if you've got an application on your phone that can read a PDF, then I can just click on that file and it'll open it right up. So some other quick features, and if anybody wants to see any of these, I'd be glad to show them. So first of all, sharing. And this is really nice. I use this for a couple of notebooks. So my wife and I have a notebook that we share that has information about household projects. So anything I put in there, she can see and edit, and anything she puts in there, I can see and edit. So anytime you have a notebook stored in the cloud, you have the ability to be able to share it. You can put tags on pages. So you saw me put to-do tags on some of those lines. I can put all kinds of different tags that they offer, or I can make up my own tags on individual pages, on lines. So you have a lot of ability to stick tags on things to make them easy to find. Custom page templates. So you saw that I had some pages that had some decorations on them. You can not only do that, but you can actually have templates that start out with certain content in them. So for example, you might have a daily planner page, and I've seen people do this. I don't happen to do it, where they have a notebook that is their daily planner. And every time they start a new day, they create a new page, and it's already got sections filled in on the page for things to do today, appointments. Not that it puts data in those, but the sections are already there for you to type into. Versioning, this is really nice. So when you make changes to a page, it actually keeps previous versions of that page. So if you delete something and you don't realize it, or if you're sharing a notebook and somebody else makes some changes and you just decide, I do not want to keep those changes, I want to go back to the way it looked 3 days ago, OneNote will have that version. And you can get a list of all the times you've made changes to that page and go back and look at previous versions of the page. Page templates, I talked about that, where you can have pages that have pre-populated sections. Integration with Outlook. I don't use Outlook, but in my office, pretty much everybody does. So one of the things you can do is if you get an email and you want to stick that in Outlook, there's an icon in Outlook where you can just say, I want to stick this in OneNote, and it'll say, great, which notebook do you want to put it in? And it'll shove the whole email right over into Outlook. So if you use Outlook, that's really nice. Docked note-taking. So what you can do is OneNote can put up a little sidebar where you can take notes. So you can be doing whatever you want to on your computer. So maybe you're browsing the internet or whatever, and you want to be able to take notes at any point. OneNote will leave a little window up on the side of the screen so that you can go back at any time and just stick your cursor in there and start typing some notes. Real-time collaboration. If you have a notebook that's shared, this is pretty nice. It allows you and someone else to be working on the same document at the same time, and you can see the changes in real time that you're each making to that document. That's a feature that I first saw in Google Docs and really liked it, and then OneNote added it after that, and it's really nice. And another thing that I didn't show you that you can store is not only can you store text and photos, you can actually store audio and video recordings as well. So you could actually use OneNote as an audio recorder where you just click on an icon and start talking, and it inserts an audio recording right into the page that you can play back at any time. And I've done that. I don't use it regularly, though. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what it costs. It is almost entirely free. So the app's completely free on all platforms. So you never have to pay for the application itself. You can create an unlimited number of local notebooks. So on your own hard drive, you can create as many notebooks as you want of any size. So how about notebooks up in the cloud? This is where I actually keep most of my notebooks, and you store them on OneDrive, Microsoft OneDrive. So right now, Microsoft gives 5 gigabytes for free, and they give you ways to earn more free space. So I actually have 40 gigabytes for free with Microsoft, just because at various times they said, hey, if you'll use our Android application for this, we'll give you an additional 10 gigabytes in OneNote. And a lot of times it was things I wanted to do, so I agreed to do that. For $1.99 a month, you can get 100 gigabytes in OneNote or in OneDrive, and you can use that space not only for OneNote notebooks, but to store documents or whatever. You can store any kind of file there. And then you can get 1 terabyte if you have Microsoft 365, and that's $70 a year. So you don't have to pay for the notebooks specifically, but if you want to keep them in the cloud, you have to have space to store them. And that's what Microsoft charges for their cloud storage. So some add-ons. So there are a number of people that have written programs that give OneNote additional capability. Some of these cost a little bit of money. Some of them are free. The one that I really like is called One More, and it is a free add-on. And let me show you real quick what I can do with One More. It just gives me some capabilities that I don't otherwise have. So for example, if I go over here to my list of things I want to do, you'll notice that, by the way, I don't like the name they stuck on this. So I'm going to rename, you can rename pages. So I'm going to do that. Come up here and just change this. I'm going to take out the 10 best part. I'm just going to make that. There we go, Barossa Valley Wine Tours. So you look at that list and you might notice, hey, it would be nice if that were in alphabetical order. OneNote does not actually give you a way to do that. I can rearrange the pages by hand. I can drag them all around, but I can't tell OneNote to put them in alphabetical order. But I have this add-on called One More, and it has a sort function. And I can tell it I want to sort the pages in this section by name in ascending order, and boom, and there they are in alphabetical order. So, One More and OneTastic and OneNote Gems all have all kinds of additional capabilities built in that just makes OneNote do all kinds of stuff that it doesn't do out of the box. So I really like those. So last thing, where do you get it? So OneNote is included as part of Office. So if you have Microsoft Office, as Huey mentioned, you have OneNote. These days, it actually gets installed as part of Office, whether you want it or not. But the interesting thing about OneNote is you don't have to have Office to use OneNote. So it's actually available to anybody for download at that address right there, onenote.com/download. And what's interesting is you can upgrade OneNote without even upgrading Office. So suppose you bought Office 2010 and you really like it and you don't see any reason to pay any money to upgrade it, but you would like the latest version of OneNote. You can go to onenote.com/download, and for free, you can download the latest version of OneNote while keeping Office 2010. So they're really, OneNote is bundled into Office. It works with Office if you have Office, but it's really a separate product in terms of what version you're on and getting it, and it's always free. So that's it. What questions do you have?
Oh. Mark? Oh.
You said you had previously used Evernote.
Yes.
And what was it about OneNote that it caused you to make the change?
Two things. Number one, OneNote continued to be, from my standpoint, completely free because I've got enough storage in OneDrive that it holds all my notebooks. Whereas for me to have continued with Evernote, I would have had to have gotten the paid version for what I wanted to do. The other thing, and I don't know if this has changed, something that Huey had said in his presentation led me to think maybe they've changed this, but I like the organizational model in OneNote better than what Evernote had when I was using Evernote. So what Evernote did at the time I was using it, and Huey, you can tell me if this has changed, is you created a notebook and you essentially dumped all of your data into OneNote, and then you put tags on it to allow you to find stuff. And I didn't particularly like that organizational model where you had this big heap of data, but then you identified characteristics of the data that allowed you to search for it. So I much prefer OneNote's idea of you have a notebook and that contains sections and that can contain subsections if you want. I didn't discuss that. And then within that you have pages and then you put data on the pages. So I really like that container model where you have things inside things inside things, because that's just the way my brain works.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To go along with that, Evernote does have notebooks and then notes, and you can stack them as well. And it does have tags. I never have used a tag
Really?
in Evernote because the search is so good. All I have to do is put a word in and it will find what I'm looking for, or a couple of words and it'll find what I'm looking for without having to use the tags.
And I know a lot of people that work that way. So that's clearly working for a lot of people. And by the way, I guess I should mention, OneNote has a search feature as well. It's right here. So I can just type like GPS and I get every document. I instantly get every document that's got the word GPS in it. And it searched through every notebook when I did that. But I can change that. So I can say, no, just search in this section or just search in this notebook. And it'll just search for the phrase wherever I tell it to. So yeah, I know a lot of people that just depend on the searching in both products. And if that's what works for you, then great. Oh, I didn't share my screen, did I? You didn't see that. Let me share my screen real quick. So yeah, here we go. So if I just type GPS, you can just see as quick as that, it finds every place in all of my notebooks that the letters GPS shows up. So yeah, they both have very, very good searching. And I know lots of people that just depend on that.
One thing Evernote has had for years, and I'm not sure whether OneNote does now, but it didn't at one time. And that's the ability when you put in GPS, if GPS is in a picture, in a JPEG, it will find it as well.
Yeah. So
does that work in OneNote?
Yeah, it does. And to tell you the truth, I don't use it. I just don't tend to have a lot of photos that actually have words that are searchable in it. So I know it's got that feature. I've seen that in the feature list. I don't use it. But that's just me.
I have a question, please.
Sure.
Huey way back impressed me with one of the things he was doing with Evernote, and that was anytime he bought a device like a camera or a printer, he would take the PDF that came with it and scan it, put it into Evernote. So then it was available from whatever he happened to be on at the moment. He could find it any place. So I'm clear that you could do the same thing in OneNote. Is that not correct?
Yeah, you can. And I happen not to do that just because long before I used OneNote, I got in the habit. I've got a directory where I store all the manuals that I download. So I've just stuck with that. But yeah, you clearly could. I do actually keep track of things that I purchase. I've got a notebook called Reference, and it's got a section called Hardware, And within that, every time I buy something there, it goes in there. Whoops. Yep, there we go. So here's, when and where I bought it, what I paid for it, a link to Amazon where I got it.
You're
And
not
so-
sharing. We don't see what you're looking at.
Oh God, I'm sorry. Oh God, I'm so bad at this. Okay, how's that?
Yes.
So this is a notebook that I've been using for a long time called Reference, and it's got a section called Hardware. And every time I buy something, it goes in here, and I fill in as much of this as I feel like filling out. This is an example, by the way, of if I create a new page, I don't just get a blank page. I get a page that's already got this table in it, and I just have to fill it in. So that's an example of a template. So yeah, I could easily attach a file here. So just open up a blank line, go to Insert, File Attachment, and just browse through it. Yep, and I can just attach a file.
I
And
saw
there it is.
the notebook would be devices, let's say, or manuals, and then each section would be the various camera or printer. That is that the organization that you would suggest for that?
Well, what I did is this is in a notebook called Reference, and I just need one page for each device. So I created a notebook called Reference, and one of the pages one of the sections is hardware, and then there's just a page in there for each device.
I see.
But you can do it however, whatever makes sense for you. And I do the same thing when I buy software. So actually, I don't have anything in there right now. So yeah, that's a great thing to do. I just didn't get in the habit of attaching manuals, but I certainly could.
Got it. Okay, well, that answers my questions. Are there other questions anyone else would like to ask Mark?
Mark, I got a couple questions for you.
Sure, Tom.
You mentioned that you have to have a subscription to Microsoft Office in order to use spreadsheets and things like that. So I'm assuming that would preclude the use of any other software such as OpenOffice or anything else would not be compatible with OneNote.
So yeah, so I think if you were using OpenOffice or something like that, you could certainly attach the files, but I don't think you could embed them right into the page. So I think you just attach the sheet, I think they call it, and then if you wanted to view it, you just double click on it and it would launch OpenOffice and you view it that way.
All right, and if you were to go outside of OneNote and search your computer for a search term, would your computer also search all the files within OneNote, or you have to do a search within OneNote only to find?
Yeah, my belief is you'd have to do a search within OneNote itself. The files it creates, actually, if you look at what it actually creates when you create a notebook, Microsoft creates one file per section in the notebook. So when I created that Australia notebook and it had 6 or 7 sections in it, if you looked on your file, on your file system, you'd see 6 or 7 new files being created. So you can't, so I don't think it can search within those natively within Windows.
And if OneNote somehow or other, some files got corrupted, and I think that probably happens to us at one time or another when files get corrupted and a program doesn't function. And if you had, the only way to solve that would be to uninstall OneNote and then reinstall it. How could you save all of your files within OneNote? Because if you uninstall OneNote, wouldn't that also delete all the files within it?
No, it doesn't. And in fact, I back up I've only got a couple local notebooks. Most of the notebooks I keep on OneDrive, but the files that I do keep on my local hard drive, I back up just like any other file. And if I reinstall OneNote, I can just point it at the directory where those files are, and it'll see them, and it'll realize they're notebooks, and it'll open them. And of course, if you keep it on OneDrive, then you lose your whole computer. You get a new computer, you install OneNote, you log onto it with your Microsoft account, and it has all your notebooks.
All right, thank you, Mark. Excellent presentation as usual.
Oh, well, thank you very much. All right. Yeah, if I'll make these slides available to everybody, and I'll send Stan the link. And if you've got any questions, feel free to contact me.